Lake Van is just about big enough to circumnavigate in one day and stop for the things worth stopping for, and that is just what we intended to do. It wasn't too long for our first stop, which started with seeing a juvenile tortoise where it shouldn't have been, and, as always in Turkey, you soon find that you are never alone. Here, this Kurdish family just kept on increasing, but what a lovely family it was. The Kurdish people are very poor, so need to do things the cheapest way. Wheels are complicated, need repairs, and far more expensive than 2 pieces of tree trunk which are readily available, and they only cost the labour it takes to fashion them. The only ones that actually lost out were the 2 oxen, or were they bullocks? Many of the Kurd families depend on shepherding for wool and meat, wool being the base for their carpet making that all the world knows. And then of course mutton, the meat of the doner kebab, which all the world also knows. Rearing sheep in this sometimes arid landscape often means moving on. So it's no surprise that these folk live in the most mobile of all dwellings, the tent, and you will see them scattered all over the Kurd region of Turkey. Motoring around Lake Van is a bit special, as indeed the lake is itself. In geological terms, the lake is very old, being formed as a basin to a massive volcanic disturbance. Water flows and often cascades into the lake, but there is no overflow, so it's either got to leak or it just evaporates in the scorching sun, but the lake is always there. We had heard a thunder in the distance but took no notice of it. It had gone on for hours and still didn't get any closer. And then we saw this, and it must have been a lot worse earlier, for just look at the size of those rocks. It may seem that I was being overcautious clearing our way, but I had good reason, for just a couple of weeks earlier we had hit rocks high up in the Taurus mountains that ripped out all sorts of things from under the car, including the fuel pipe. But that's another story. Safely on the other side, we were about halfway round the lake and were soon to get glimpses of the water and some typical Kurdish villages. But it was often the landscape that was so appealing. Mountains, volcanoes, rocks, vegetation, people, and of course sunshine. At last we found a good sized Turkish tortoise that are so much safer on the road than it may seem, especially the large ones. Lorry drivers judge it so that the tortoises see wheels on both sides before returning to daylight. Anyway, we saw this one onto much safer ground, although it had been able to look after itself for many years before we got there. The bottle green lake, which has no apparent circulation and is full of sulfides and mineral salts, is still good for swimming. It is dead except for where water flows in. There are no fish, mollusks or seaweed. However, there is also no pollution, despite the fact that the Kurds clean everything in it that needs a refresher, including their world-famous woolen carpets. This swim is at the end of a very hot day and the water is lovely.